Recording now.
7, 8,
Now
9, 10.
No, I did not eat anything for breakfast today.
Are you comfortable like this?
I'm comfortable like this. You know what it is. This is music and mental health. It's your boy Boomerang. Special guest in the house tonight. There we go. Rolling. Special guest. Maybe bring it a little closer to him. You bring the mic closer to him. Looks like we're rolling.
Okay.
And we're in
Let's
this
just move that out the way so it's just not sitting there. No,
season
I'm talking
2.
about-
Just run it to the back. The Music and Mental Health Podcast. And today we have a very special guest in the house. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Gerry Brown.
Hello.
Round of applause to go crazy. Yes. Our first guest appearance. Of course, first of many. And Gerry Brown is a seasoned genius in the game. I've had the opportunity and blessing to be able to work with such a cat.
Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure to work with you as well.
Oh, thank you, brother. Thank you. Please allow me to do the thanks here. You are the guest, and let's kick right off. What are you listening to currently, my brother?
I'm listening to a host of everything. Most of the stuff I've been listening to is the stuff that I've been working on. Because I don't like to get clouded with somebody else's vision. But I think last year my biggest project that I listened to as far as me being an engineer and producer was Billie Eilish, because I thought that was something that was commercial, but it was something also different. So the projects that I work on, I really like to work on something that's different than outside of the norm. You know, whether it be a record company's decision of what their direction is.
Yeah.
I like when people go outside of that. You know what I mean?
No doubt.
So they decide to go their own way. There's one thing I saw recently on a documentary about most great artists don't listen to other people when they're making their art. They want their voice to be heard.
And no distractions. They don't want any influence from the outside.
Like, oh, I like that particular sound, so I'm going to use that. No, I think before you start your record, you could be doing that. Okay,
yeah.
But once you start your own record, you got to put everybody else aside to what you're actually doing.
No doubt. And it's such a treat and a pleasure if you get the ability or the chance to really close yourself off from the rest of the world and work in an environment where you have no distractions, right. Let alone electronic distractions through social media and, Twitter and other outside influence of your peers. But if you could even capture that physically, eliminate those distractions and lock yourself in a home or an environment, or a place, a castle, whatever it might be, a dungeon, and go in on a project, that's when I feel like I usually get the best results.
Yeah, because you're allowed to be yourself. That's the key thing about everything that we do. I've just been going through this metamorphosis within the last 2 or 3 weeks as far as my mixing. I felt like a lot of times I'm having to rush mixes to get them to the point where I'm happy, because also as a mixer I feel if I'm happy, the artist and the production team will be happy. But I've been able to experiment the last few 2.5, 3 weeks just doing stuff where I'm just actually going in on these plugins. Okay, because plugins are our friend if you know how to use them. But a lot of times we're not able to, and we go to a default setting. We go, okay, this is what I know how to make it vocal sound good. you got to throw all that out the window. You got to go, I'm going to try something different today.
What's your favorite plugin?
I can't really say because they all have such a diverse application, and I really can't say.
What about for vocals specifically? Could you say that?
For vocals, you talking about the initial processing of it, or the
anything? Yeah.
Well, I usually like to start off with a chain. I usually use 1176 Gerry plugin. You can find them on UAD or CLA plugins, Chris Lord Algae, who I respect. And so I can set them, and then I'll do my initial EQing, where I just make the vocal clear, and then I'll go back and do another compression, sort of like a parallel compression, so that I can hold the vocal in a range that it's not like going from here to there, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You can't really control a vocal. You can do it with levels. I used to be a guy when I first started, I hated compression because I didn't understand it. But now that I understand it to a certain degree, I think there's always room to grow. I'm always trying something different with that. So I usually do that, and then if I still am not happy with the EQ, I'll go in and put another EQ to where it'd be a fab filter or the new version of the Waves, a Renaissance 6 EQ.
And are these stock plugins?
They're not stock plugins.
So
A couple of them are, no, you got to pay for these plugins.
Okay.
You know.
And you typically run Pro Tools, correct?
I work with Logic for actually recording a lot of the stuff, but for the most of big projects that I work with our label, everybody's doing Pro Tools now. A lot of times people will come in with their Ableton programs, and we'll just have to transfer it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I noticed that you use the what is the drum machine that you use that has everything?
MPC.
Yeah, the MPC, of course, which I knew the first MPC, but now it's such a nice level that you can really orchestrate even better than when you have the MPC C2, you know, or the 3000.
Mm-hmm.
So that gave us a lot more capabilities to work within MIDI. But
Right.
people, I don't really see people really running MIDI that much.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw you running MIDI on a few of the things that you were doing, but it wasn't like.
Well, that's why I love the MPC X, which is what we were running.
Right.
That day. And the MPC X is dope because you could run MIDI into MPC, or you could run direct input audio, or you could run, guitars, of course, or and even microphones. And that's really my standalone unit right now, so I'm pretty.
Yeah, because everybody has their thing,
happy.
as you know,
Yeah.
because Six, he likes Fruity Loops. And he's able to edit on that because that's something that he knows. I think what you do is you learn a piece of equipment, and if you can make it dance, you know what I mean? If you can make that fool dance, that's what you're going to go to, because that's your go-to, because you know that I don't have to be learning on the spot. I've spent time with this particular gear, and I noticed that when you came in, you were ready to go. What the days that we were recording, you were like, okay, this is what I have. And then other people will sometimes take files, and like Drew would come in, and he would take some files, and then he would edit them the way that he heard them. Then they would all airdrop them back to us, and we could see how it fit. That was perfect, because you're allowing people to work with their own creative space.
Right.
I think when we bring in musicians, only bring in musicians that I feel that can totally take to some place that I didn't think about taking. I do not want to tell a musician what to play.
Yeah.
Either you can feel it or you don't. And I've always been a person, if you ain't feeling with an hour and a half, I go, thank you very much. We got what we need, you know.
Sounds like the production perspective of a Duke Ellington
Yeah.
orchestration.
Let me turn off this phone because... Hello?
Gerry Brown's got a phone call on the podcast. This is the first podcast we've ever had a phone call.
Podcast. Come upstairs. Brandon won't let you.
It's another guest in the house, but that's okay. We're gonna keep it moving.
Yeah.
And like I said, that's interesting that you say that. You know, allowing the artist to be the artist,
right,
and giving them, you know, the opportunity to shine, and not putting them in any fields where they might feel uncomfortable, which is very much Duke Ellington approach, you know, on the bandstand. So I think that's really dope, and it actually leads me to my current topic, which is what I've been listening to lately. I've been listening to a lot of Duke Ellington, a lot of low-key Duke Ellington. Like one of my favorite songs of all time is "A Single Petal of a Rose." Do you know that song?
Yeah, but also the thing I loved about him, this is like being like a good film director. Duke Ellington was a good band director, meaning that he knew that he couldn't do all the arrangements for the Cotton Club and for certain songs, so we'd have Strayhorn, his arranger. Now, he was like an orchestrator, so Duke would tell him sort of like what he wanted, and then he would apply the soul to it. Now, a lot of times what Ellington would do, say for solos, if he was kind of devious in this way, that if he knew that you were having problems with your girlfriend and you played bari sax, he would use you because he felt like you could bring the emotion to the song. Right. And I think that's very important, is what we bring to a song, whether you be engineering or producing a track.
Right.
You want to have it where it feels more organic than forced.
Right.
know? Yeah.
That's what I tell the cats in the Voyager fleet, you know. You got to use your emotion when you are being creative, because that's where all the energy and the juice is.
Right.
You know? Jack White once said something similar to those lines, in the fact that, you know, you open up your book and your lyrics when your emotions are running deep, very, very deep emotions. You know, that's the best form of therapy there is. You know, in terms of mental health, we are so blessed with the ability to express our deepest sorrows through music, and we have that release when we do it. You know, I feel so lucky to be able to express myself through piano and just playing it, whether I'm singing with the keys or just putting my fingers to the notes, and there's a lot of emotion attached to how the sound comes out. And the sound in the room is my emotions in the room. So, you know, the ability to express yourself as a musician is, I'm so thankful for that.
Well, the thing that I find with mental health, with doing what we do, everything is based on that. If you're having a shitty day, okay, then your music will either be very nice because you're internalizing it in a different way. As far as like, I always found that when I write my music, right, I write better when I'm kind of like going through something. And I think a lot of people do, or you can recognize somebody else's situation. That to me, mental health is like, if I'm not feeling a vibe in the room, my mixes will come out not as well. If I'm feeling a positive vibe in the room, just like if you're feeling a positive vibe, if you're recording, you want to keep it moving, you know. So I basically always try to make it possible, you know. With my band situation, with my drummer and Matt Banks, we have so much fun in the studio, and a lot of that had to do with when I started doing your record and also John Lindow. It was such a community, is such a community that when you're in the room, everybody has one accord to make the best record possible.
Mm-hmm.
And when I work with Matt, we totally, I'll just leave the room and totally let him do his thing. And so I don't even mess around until I get, done with it. But it's mental health is very important to your mental state. Now, when I write, sometimes I don't necessarily have to be in the greatest of mood. That's why I think a lot of times when people get a lot of money, they can't write shit no more because they're not going through pain. But they're not being observant to the actual process of writing. Process is about being writing to me is very cathartic for me. Now, you have people that come in and just write melody and lyrics on top of tracks, and they're called top liners. They don't impress me, to be quite honest. I think that's a skill, but it's not something that I would want to do. Like somebody call me and they go, write a lyric in 2 hours. That's not how the process is. The process is you really digesting and being able to go back and go, that lyric sucked. Or at least now I feel that it sucked. Basically, I try to listen to what's current, but I don't take it unless I hear something extraordinary that makes me want to pull off to the side of the road.
What do you like about the Billie Eilish album?
Because it was different in this sense that it broke some of the rules about, even though it's a very poppy record, but what I liked about it was the production. I forget the engineer who mixed it. It was a friend of Bobby Campbell's. And we shared a room at one point, and just listening to his mixes, they were very clean, but they still had a vibe to it. So I was listening to Bad Guy the other day, the original, and I was just like, there's some, even though he will cop to that the vocal effects are on there, he did not do. It was her brother who did most of the production. Phineas, right? So he did most of the production, so he came up with those ideas. Okay? And I love the fact that I know his name is Rob. I forget his last name. You guys can fix that. Okay? But I just felt like he captured what that record was, and he's a very humble type of person.
Yeah.
And so he was very smart. He got
they
nice
did very well.
He did very well, and for that to win, me being involved with an album like Alicia Keys' Songs in Another Key, an A minor rather, Songs in A minor, and then with her record, they both, it seems like to me, even like the late great Amy Winehouse, when you really hit that mark, you can take home, if you're a new artist, 5, because you're going to have the best record, you're going to have the best new artist, the best record, the album of the year, because people really gravitate to you. And so being involved with a record like that, I understand it. How I just knew at a certain point in the Grammys, I said, well, everybody else is just, kind of just...
No doubt.
Because I knew that it was going to take it because people recognize creativity.
And she had a big wave this year.
And I think that, to me, it's just like sometimes you have to get out of your comfort zone. With my record, I'm not looking to mix a record. Me and Matt have been talking about getting other people to mix it. I don't think I can afford Rob at this point because his price is probably sky high. But I will, seek out his advice on where I should go. But to me, I think if you keep it simple in your productions and keep it more raw, people gravitate it more because people's lives are raw right now.
Yeah.
And so if you try to polish it up too much, people's life ain't polished. They ain't gonna connect to it.
I feel
The
you.
guy down on Skid Row ain't gonna connect to a real polished record. He wants.
Speaking of a real polished record, another song that's jumped into my rotation is Cat Power. I believe the name of the song is Love and Communication. Do you know that song?
By who?
Cat Power.
Okay. I don't know if I'm that familiar with this. I'm not going to sit here and say I am.
Oh man, it sounds like a '90s song.
Okay.
I could be wrong, and I hope I'm saying her name correct. Otherwise, this segment will be ruined. But otherwise, it's a beautiful song, man, about songwriting. You know, like just sticking to the meat of what a real composition is about, and it's polished and it's raw and it's delicate, and it has this groove that just kind of creeps up, but it has this nod. I was actually riding through the mountains today,
Right.
and it's one that keeps coming back to my clicks and my rotation. Great song, loving it. Tell me about your current mental health, my brother.
I'm doing really good. There are days where I kind of go, what the F? But most of the time I try to stay in a very positive way of thinking always. But I do have my days where, like, for instance, my mental health is I try not to do anything on Sundays and Mondays because I figure Sunday's really supposed to be a day of rest, especially if we've been out partying on Saturdays. But as far as, and then Monday, it seems like the chickens come home to roost, whatever things that you've done the previous week, whether you have to pay bills and everything. I kind of don't like to do music on those days. Those 2 days, I don't do music. And I just started that 2 weeks ago because I didn't want to do music if I wasn't feeling like doing music.
So what do you do on Sunday and Monday?
Netflix. No.
Sunday and Monday are spent on Netflix. Nothing wrong with
Prime
that.
Video. I watch so many documentaries because I've learned so much about underground punk.
What's the best documentary you've seen recently?
Oh God, I think it was called Rude. Mike Rude. It was the thing about he was a promoter that took no shit. Okay. And he brought up the punk scene in 1979 and 80 down in San Diego. He would get mad when people from there would come up here and play because he goes, no, we got to create the scene. And the list of people from Black Flag and all these other people that they promoted down there. But he was a very unique character and a very gruff voice, and he would get off the fucking stage. So basically, if he didn't like the way your band was playing, he would go on stage and unplug your shit and kick you off the stage. Okay, so
it's a Monday. You just watched this documentary.
I just watched it yesterday.
You feel incredibly inspired.
Yeah,
is
because
is it ever the case in that moment, even on the day that it's Netflix, and you have your rule not to create? Were you inspired in that moment to create? Do you ever allow that?
Yeah, of course I allow it, but I just take kind of notes and go because I still want to be in my own element when I record. Okay, so now the way that I'm looking at studios is that I basically don't look at studios as just a place to record. I use a place to paint, audio painting. So if one studio can bring me a certain sound for certain things, I use that studio. If this one brings me something where it's just more intimate for me to do certain things, that's how I just studio now. I'm not trying to be loyal to one studio anymore.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
even though
Vibes are important in the room.
I think that
Definitely.
if you find a room that, especially with mixing, that you're more comfortable with, then that's the room you should use.
Right.
Okay, but
Right.
when it comes down to recording, it's about whatever you're going to. Some places are going to be great for vocals.
Uh-huh.
Some places are going to be great for doing overdubs. Like when we were doing the overdubs for the first time I worked with you at United. That was a good vibe because everybody had the control room was so big that you had 3 or 4 people have their own little stations.
Yeah.
So you could just play it like you could play it like a mandolin, or just a keyboard and go, okay, it's your turn to play your little bit. And I thought that was an absolutely great feeling. And when we moved to Alpha Studios, the famous Mr. Ed Ranch, that was a whole total vibe that I thought was so conducive because we had a kitchen there. We had so much different things going on in the room. And, and John Michelle and Matt were because Matt's the one who turned me on to the place. It was so important for me to feel comfortable because I always wanted to feel like what it reminded me of actually was a great studio that a lot of people did their records from Chicago to Elton John, Earth, Wind & Fire was up in Colorado called Caribou.
Uh-huh.
So it was just a place that you were kind of isolated.
Right. That
nobody could mess with you. It wasn't that easy, even though it was very easy for us to go down to the store. I like it where you can't get out.
Right.
Okay, whatever you bring, that's what you have.
Once again, you have that environment, that escape that you're able to create.
You have that escape, and I think that's very important for people to feel very comfortable in their own skin when they're recording.
Yeah.
And
I feel like both locations that you've mentioned just now, great energy. Yeah. Love the energy there. Love the vibes. That comes first when it comes to making a record. You gotta have some clear, positive energy in the room. There can't be any friction, or the music will never be there. There is, there is times when there's other energy around, and sometimes it might alter the process,
No, it could be one person in the room that throws out negativity that creates this vibe that nobody feels comfortable in.
Yeah.
So whatever their intentions are and making the process happen, because everybody has a vision and everybody comes into the studio the day that they come in is either they had a fight with their girlfriend.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or
right.
They've had like
or Sting fighting with Stewart.
Right, right. Or you just don't like to, say you're in a band and you don't particularly like the bass player anymore. So when you come into the studio, you're just going to be hating on this person. I remember this famous studio, we used to collect, all the engineers would collect these behind the scenes, and the whole Spinal Tap was really based on this group called the Trogs, okay? And so they had done a very famous song, Wild Thing. They were the first ones to do Wild Thing. And so they get this money, so they decided they're going to produce the record themselves.
Yeah.
But they can't make a decision. Everybody's like in their very, very English accents when they're doing it. And then one guy leans over to he's a guitar player, and he leans over to the mic. He goes, "The drummer, I shit him." So, because
right, that's the drama.
And then they could never they were like, let's get it, because they realized at some point the record's not going well, right? So they figured they needed a producer. Like, yeah, well, let's get somebody to sprinkle some fairy dust on top of this.
Right.
So
magic.
It was just like, you have to have, when you're like doing a record, you have to have somebody who is really the lead producer. Let's take Michael Jackson. Without Quincy, him being a very great orchestrator,
right?
Those first 3 records, Bad, he really didn't particularly like that well. I mean, he liked Bad, but that's why he was out after that. But what he was allowed to do is be a producer. Quincy would take maybe 10 guitar players and know how to orchestrate them. He would take the best parts out of it. So that's what a director does. A director is almost like a director and a film editor too. Now, the engineers, what our job is supposed to be a cinematographer, director of photography.
Uh-huh.
Because if we don't get to capture the picture that you want as a producer, we have failed our job. Like the one thing that I never liked, because there were some records I did in the 90s ago, I could tell that's a Gerry Brown mix. But I hated that because I didn't want you to hear me.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted you to hear the artist that I was mixing. So, but there are certain things, now engineers would know, but I just never wanted the public to feel that way. It's like when people started to be producer driven.
Yeah.
I didn't like that, dude, because it's not about you as a producer. Now, maybe like for you to get your numbers up and like get all these deals that were going around, that you had to be recognizable. But I think the best people that have done what I love to do, engineer and produce, are the people that don't, you can't pick them out. You pick the artists out. And hopefully you make great records.
Do you feel like you've always been sensitive to ego?
Yeah. Ego is kind of like, you kind of have to have one to walk into a room in the first place. You got to know that you got something to bring. Okay, but when it takes over the room, most of the time when I see ego goes bad, when people are insecure and they're not comfortable with what they're doing, so they start to blame other people in the room for their lack of knowledge. Because we're all scared rabbits that people are going to pick up that we don't know as much as we think we know, or they think we know. Okay, so people, egos will, I've seen artists lash out at people for no reason, even big artists, you know, just do something so stupid that made no sense, and even though apologize, it's not, you know, a good attribute to be have an ego. I think that when you walk into that room, it's like Quincy when they did We're the World, leave your ego at the door. We got to leave our egos at the door. I come in, I already know that there are better engineers than me.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to always up my craft.
Yeah.
By doing the wood shedding. Just like a musician has a woodshed, engineers have to woodshed too.
No doubt.
So,
and in any artistic world, it doesn't matter what level
right.
one is on that's present in the room. It doesn't matter how much experience anyone has in any project that's trying to collaborate on something together, because the first moment you have any form of negative energy or, you know, challenge and experience, oh, well, no, you don't know what you're talking about, let me take the reins here, that's destruction of the project. That's,
yeah, and I
you
have
know,
to say I've been on both sides of it. I've been in situations where I felt like I knew exactly what should happen, but then when I allowed myself to go like, you know what, this other person might have a good idea, let me shut the F up. And
you could say fuck.
yeah, okay, shut the fuck up and let somebody else take the reins for a minute. And I think that's the only way that you can have a true collaboration, because I always feel that making a record is like making a film. Steven Spielberg, Quentin Tarantino do not make these films alone. It's a whole cast of people. And once you start to recognize that what different people's roles are and their strengths, okay?
Yeah.
And then you can really be able to do, like, we're getting ready to go into the mixing process with my record, but we're trying to be open to that we don't know everything about how to present. I have a good idea, and I'm going to lay a great palette, so
Right.
you either have a chance to fuck it up or not. So as an artist, I would get my music to the point to a certain thing, whether you have a different voice. Sometimes you should see how much money you have to spend. Maybe you want to get somebody like that guy Rob or something to mix a couple of your big joints. You never know. But you want to be able to have the wherewithal to, be able to express that, because I always felt that for me as an engineer, I always like when I go into a project where I haven't done the recording when I mix, because it leaves me open. All I need for you people to give me is a good rough mix. And then I can, try to beat that and make you...
What do you mean when you say you people?
Huh? Say that again.
I said, what do you mean when you say you people?
You people. I mean artists and producers. That's what I mean by you people. It's not a bit racialist. No, it's nothing has to do with that. It has nothing to do with that, but...
You guys are at 36 minutes.
Okay, so...
It just depends how long you want to go. I'm just giving you a...
No, but...
It's all good. Keep speaking.
So, that's what I mean by you people. But that's hilarious. But I kind of mean that in a negative way, because I put myself in the same light, at times, So I just want to, like I said, when I go in to do these records, that I have a clear mind. As you know, that I try to have fun on every session, try to make everybody laugh, and so everybody feels comfortable in their thing.
Yeah, it should be fun, right?
But I'm deadly serious about when Josh Lippy came in. Our connection was that he was such a big Raphael Saadiq fan that I had this communication. So when I sat with him, he's playing about the same distance you are from me. And I was like, and I think
this is on Miles and Ooh Girl.
Yeah, I was just like, oh man. And then we would, whenever, as you know, when music is good, I just fall out laughing because music makes me happy. I've been kicked out of clubs because I was laughing too hard because the music was so good, like a quiet jazz club.
How amazing is that music can really affect one's general emotions
and mental health? Because I'm going to tell you, when I'm down, it only takes a song sometime to bring me back up. And, sometimes we can go down into the muck and the mire of what our own physical existence is.
Yeah.
And so the worst thing would be for me is to not be able to hear. I could actually, even though I'd love to see shit, but if I had to pick one over the other, I would definitely pick my ears over my sight, because I feel that without being able to hear music and appreciate it, I don't know if life would be really worth living for me. I'm not saying, but a lot of people don't even like music. So, and I don't want to be associated with people like that don't at least have some kind of music. All the people that I know from all their families, they always love music, You
need music.
And so when you were growing up, what kind of stuff did you listen to as far as your influences?
When we say growing up, are we talking about like high school?
No, I'm talking about, my musicality started listening to stuff when I was like 4 or 5. So I'm sure that music has a thing to you. But when did
the first record that my mother purchased for me upon my request was yeah, hey, gonna be my lover. I think wanna be my lover, my lover, wanna be my lover. That joint.
Okay.
That was probably
what year was that?
That would have had to have been like 94, 93.
93, 94.
That would have been the first joint. Then after that, Usher Raymond. It was a zip code. I can't remember the name of the album, but it was the one
song
with
that had the zip code.
Yeah, the one that had the jams, a major breakout.
Okay.
Usher Raymond joints.
Which one?
My brother, I wish I could honestly remember the
Nah,
name.
it was very funny about Usher. Let me tell you about Usher. So I did the song for the original Panther movie, okay, that Mario Van Peebles directed, and I was like executive producer and engineer for some of the tracks in there. And then I did a song because, Atlanta had a lot to do with this record. So we had Monica and we had Usher. Now, Usher's voice was kind of deep, and he was like 14 or 15 or 16 at the time. I was like, I didn't really get to liking Usher till he became more of an adult, his more adult sound, even though I felt like he had this, whatever he did, his range opened up more. Because I was like, okay, Monica, and so, but it was a good song, but I just wasn't, for me, I didn't really get him till later, but I respect him, and of course, he's responsible for bringing us Justin Bieber, because he's the one who saw him on YouTube, and so, I mean, Usher's great, and I think he's a fantastic artist. I'm actually wondering what he's going to do next, too.
Yeah, did you saw him at the do the Amazing Grace at the LA game? Did you see that?
No, because that was a little bit too heavy for me.
I understand.
To watch that kind of thing. It's not that I was a super Kobe fan, but I like what he's done for the sport, and I like the man that he became. And I love the fact that he loves his child and everything. So, and if you look at it, he died doing what he wanted to do, was taking his daughter to a game. I mean, to her, to watch one of her games. So that was a weird day for me because
they were actually going to play basketball at that center, that academy.
Yeah.
So,
Pardon?
They were going to play basketball together at the academy.
Well, I think he was actually going to watch her play a game.
Yeah, they were going to her game.
To her
yeah,
game.
it's a terrible story.
So I felt
sad.
like,
my condolences to family. And
that's the only
everybody
thing you
involved.
can hope for. We've had a few musicians died on stage, and I think if you're going to do that, that's the best place for you to do it. Because we're doing something that we love. I think the most thing that I can say about my career as it is that I've been able to do something that I love to do for most of my years. I will talk to friends about this. It's like, do you imagine? Oh, Jesus. Hello?
Whoa, Jerry. Ladies and gentlemen, our
It's 415 Venice
second
Boulevard.
call
I'm doing a
for
podcast now.
the Music and Mental and Health
Yeah,
podcast.
so
This has never
415 North
happened
Venice
before.
Boulevard. Okay, bye-bye.
Hopefully everything's okay. Everything all right, brother?
Yeah, everything's fine. Yeah.
All right.
So continue.
Trump was officially acquitted just now.
Of course.
Yeah.
That should count, but that contributes to my mental health. So maybe you guys want to talk about that for just a minute.
Well, I really don't like to discuss politics.
We don't have to.
No, because first of all, people have their different beliefs. I'll just say this. I was talking to a friend that I grew up with, and I was quite liberal, and he made a post on Facebook the other day that really disturbed me, and I go, "You're kidding, right?" And he goes, I'm very serious, and we just have different opinions. So I took it like that. So, I mean, but sometimes it made me question people's morality
Right.
when, something like that. But let's get back to music. So you're in the midst of getting ready to mix the record, okay?
Yeah.
So do you have anything as far as first singles in mind? Do you have videos in mind? What is your plan for this?
It's funny how this turned into this. That this was the Music and Mental Health podcast. What is this? Damien Lamar Hudson interview? Yeah. I got a lot of plans. I got a lot of data on paper. I can definitely show you. It's pop culture, top secret. All that yada yada yada.
Right. No,
what can I do?
I always think that with today's social media, and as much as that you don't want to be subjugated to doing everything by the book, because by the book is not really by the book anymore.
The book is gone.
It's also about how you can create your own chapters in the book. So I'm just wondering if you have been, I'm sure you have, because, besides other things in your life that you're dealing with and everything, so have you been doing that kind of forethought in your project? Because
definitely, I have been categorizing my memories in the appropriate boxes to maintain the vibe that will be presented upon rollout of future releases.
Right. Yeah.
And I think I'm really excited for what's about to happen because, like I said, I can't say too much. But I'm really happy that you definitely threw the ball in that court.
Yeah, because
sports reference.
For me, it's all about. See, the thing about today's culture when you deal with record companies is that they basically need you as to be the clue for how you want your project to be presented. So the most things that you can have ready for them, the better it is for the project. Because they're not sometimes these guys that are the Aretha Martins, the Joe Smiths, all these great Walter Yetnikoff, all these people that are created artists. So you almost have to create yourself in this light.
Yeah.
So the best thing you have, because all I know is that when you go into a project, when you have everything, your videos done and everything, but not overdo it too much where they feel like they can't have a voice in it, okay? If that they're just being your distributor, it works out better for you to have a vision. Mm-hmm. Because all the people that I know that are successful always have a clear vision. You don't go into a project where your vision is not as clear as you need it to be. Mm-hmm. So I'm doing this record right now called Generational about how it's first sort of how to survive a midlife crisis from a woman's standpoint. But now we've been doing stuff with Generational. And Generational, the songs are really about basically how we are guided by everything that we grew up with. So if your father was an alcoholic, there's a good chance you will be one too. If your parents were mean, it's a good chance you'll be mean to your kids. So it's how to break the cycle of being in this generational funk that makes you like, even my family didn't travel as much, so I tried to travel as much as I could to open up my mind so I wouldn't get set into this sedentary way of thinking. You know what I mean? So I just think that as musicians, we have to leave ourselves so much more open to gather so many influences because, you know, by traveling as much as you have traveled, you gathered so much more than just being in California.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it's all about, right? The
Right.
places you go and the people you meet, those are the experiences you have. Those are the opportunities you have to really grow your mind and expand as a person. And to learn, you know, about the differences between us. That's not what it's necessarily about. What it's really about is that we're all actually connected, and the differences between us don't really mean anything at all. That's all the bullshit that they want us to put in between each other to keep
I
us separated.
think it's more about environment, whereas when we think about how we react to stuff is how we grew up. I was talking to a friend of mine, Matt, about how he grew up in Canada, and sometimes he looks at some of the stuff that we deal with, like every day, and going, "How does that make sense?" I go, "Well, if you grew up in this environment, you would kind of know. Like if I grew up in Montreal, okay, I would have a different attitude. If I grew up in the South, in St. Louis, I would have a different attitude of how we deal with stuff. So it's all about environment that creates the person. If you're willing to get out your environment, it's like if you go to any depressed area or ghetto, and then there's a certain apathy that happens. If my parents grew up in that kind of that situation, that maybe I think that situation's okay. You
Yeah.
know, I've always, I want to go beyond what my circumstances were to become, to bring myself up
Yeah.
and to bring the people that I love up, family mostly, and helping them, because I think that's the only way that we really become true good human beings because of that. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
yeah. But getting back to my point, so I think that everything that we do is generational in environment, and that contributes a lot to our own mental health, you know, and not trying to escape all the time, you know.
So what you're saying is a lot of our personal mental health is attributed to our family history. Is that?
And an environment, yeah. It's the environment that you live in. Just put it this way. I'd rather hang out with so many positive more people than one negative person. If I can hang out, because I decided a while ago that I don't want to be dealing with people that have this negative mind frame, because it doesn't help me to get to a place where I want to go to. Because if you deal with just people that are negative all the time or just dumping on you all their problems, yes, we want to be a ear for people, but when it becomes like every time you talk with a particular friend, it becomes like negative. I can't deal with that anymore. I'm just,
Yeah.
a certain part of my life, I've decided I'm not going to just put up with, you know, certain
doubt.
things as they were.
I think the easiest thing to do, which also kind of seems hard, but in the long run, it is the easiest, is just to eliminate all the negativity. Eliminate the negative people and the negative obstacles or negative environments around you that can put you in that situation or that mindset, that negative mindset, because it's that negativity that leads to more negativity, right?
Right, because it's
absorbs
like
itself.
a cancer. It breeds upon itself. If
Yeah.
you're just all dealing with negative people all the time, you will become negative. If you're dealing with positive people, it's like energy in life. You have negative and positive energy. I choose to want to be around people that are super positive now. You know, like we all have our challenges. And I'm saying that a friend can't come to me and say, you know what, this happened today. I feel kind of messed up. So I'm not going to try them. But if they keep dwelling on the same problem for like 3 or 4 weeks, I don't know what to tell you. You know? So that's basically what my philosophy is about, especially with mental health. Just surround yourself with the most positive people you can and recognize people. Listen more than you talk. And that way that you can be a receptor of good information. Or you can just listen and watch and see how people are kind of either manipulating you or trying to take your kindness for weakness. It's a big thing for me about doing that because I've always tried to give back to the craft that I do. And a lot of times people don't really feel that way, so you have to recognize that right away as also, because I've seen a lot of artists have great potential. It's about who you have surrounding you, especially when it comes to artist management. You got to have pit bulls. You can't have little puppies because these guys are used to dealing with puppies.
Right.
To manipulate them. So you always have to have, that's why I'm saying your vision has to be very clear when you go into these record companies. Have all the people in place that you need to have. And of course you're going to have to, like say the art department, you can come with the best album cover ever. And then they will go like, well, let our guy do it. Because everybody's trying to keep their job at a record company. So basically, you got to make sure that you don't rub them the wrong way, but you got to make sure that you get your vision out. That's why I say the manager, I don't think artists should be dealing with anything when it comes to their business, the real business. They should be guiding it, but they should have people that will go in and fight for you. That you would just go, no, it ain't going down that way.
I like what you said when you mentioned listen more than you talk.
Right.
I think that's a really great philosophy to live by.
Yeah, because I think you gather more information, especially about people in general, if you just listen to them and just to be open. Now, of course, a lot of times when you're in the heat of an argument with somebody, I don't think anybody's really listening. Everybody's trying to protect themselves, their ego or what they feel. So nobody's listening. Nobody's going to win, especially if you start the argument and you're the one rah. So I decided about 2 or 3 years ago that I was just going to start to listen more. Now, when people say stuff to me, it's basically, it's for a reason, you know? It's just like if I look down at you, I go, Damon, your shoe's untied and you chose not to do it. And then other people say, Damon, your shoe's untied, right? And then you trip. Whose fault was it? It was you for not looking down. So when people say things about me that I may find that are negative, I'll go, you know, there may be a little truth in what they're saying.
Yeah, at some point you have to let go of that ego and
you just have to go like, you know, we all have to know that we can be not in a good situation with our own self, and other people may recognize it. Now, if 2 or 3 people tell you the same thing, you got to
take a second and analyze yourself.
Right.
Got to recognize. Look at yourself in the mirror.
But I want to thank you guys for this podcast because I think it's.
Thank you, Jerry.
It's a positive thing, and I think that the more people are able to listen to these kind of things and kind of gather in their minds, something that they can take away that can be positive.
You're 100% right. And on the topic of my mental health, it really gives me the ability to analyze myself, right. On topic to also what you were just saying. You have to be your own toughest critic, and you have to be okay with looking at yourself from the outside and the inside, most importantly, and really, giving your brain and your emotions a
Right.
mental stretch and testing the flexibility to, really look at yourself and create some, data on paper that is information that you can use in your personal expression to deal with your personal sorrows and stresses. Like, you really need to look at everything. And it's hard to do that because we're all afraid to do that because, we all don't have that bravery sometimes to even deal with our own cuts and our own bandages that need to be
because,
attended.
as you know, as an artist, what has to happen when you hit the stage or when you're on record, you got to reveal a lot of shit for it to connect to people because people are dealing with real shit. So if you go along with just doing something in a pastoral realm, I'm just going to do this because I know how to do this particular thing. But if you cut your proverbial wrists open for people, like Blood on the Tracks by Bob Dylan, you're releasing something that other people will connect with all the time because it's something they connect with, And I'm also a thing about keep it simple, stupid. People's life are too difficult. Make something simple. I've never heard a complicated hit, ever. There are complexities within like a simple song that make it work, right? But I've never heard a complicated hit. So my whole thing is like keep the music relevant to people that they can really identify with it really easily, more than dealing with a
Complicated song.
Yeah, well, a lot of times I think that I have a lot of musicians who I'm a very basic, I don't even necessarily, I am a musician, but I don't call myself a musician in a strictest way because I can't really tell you sometimes the chords that I play, but I can hear a lot of different things when I'm doing it. And that's from the experience of working with the artists that I work with, from jazz players to rock players, from everything. So, and being that I started off as a trombone player, there are certain things that I recognize, but I'm not going to tell you, okay, this is a C minor going to an E flat. I'm not going to be able to.
Do you still play trombone?
No, because to play trombone, you would have to have a trombone because your lip has to stay. At one time, I have to tell you something funny. So I went all this way to buy me a mouthpiece. I said, because I got to get the buzz back, because there's a buzz thing where you prick your lips. You have to have it for the thing. And then I was just like, and then I never played trumpet because the mouthpiece was so little, but there was a band I used to work with, Beatnik Jr., and we went to rehearsal, and there was a trumpet, and I picked up the trumpet, and I hear some of the clearest notes, more so than I did with the trombone. And so I was just like, okay, I guess I could have played trumpet, but it was just easier, and then also play the baritone horn. So I came from a music thing. I had put down music for a number of years because it's like the Godfather 3. Every time I tried to get out, they kept calling me back to mix songs. And for some reason, when I don't mix for like a week or two, my mixes come out like fire because I'm like a racehorse kicking to get out of the stall and run down the Belmont or the Kentucky Derby. I'm ready to go. But if I work every day, I don't particularly always like to work when I work every day. I like to have a couple of days in between. Me and Matt have gotten to a thing. No, let's just take a couple of days off, and because we do a lot of our mixing stuff together. Besides being a great drummer, all-around musician, we have a clear vision sometimes when we work on mixes. I have the same thing when I work with Bobby Campbell, but it's a little bit different because Matt is like a true musician in that sense. So we kind of work on that kind of level where we kind of let each other have the space. And I think that for us as musicians and gathering what's going to be great for our project, we have to feel that way, you know? And I just love the process that we do. I just love what the fuck we do. That's all I care, you know?
Yeah, man. Well, once again, honestly, thank you so much for coming down to Music and Mental Health.
Thank you so much for having me.
Really appreciate you. It was a real pleasure to have you on, my G.
Happiness for me. I would just...
A neon sign? Take a deep breath. That's what I got right now.
Right.
Currently. That's my current neon sign. Your neon sign status. Yeah. All of that. Hey, thank you, brother. Thank you so much for coming out. How long was that? Very nice.